search through the lonely earth for me. Climb through the briar and bramble. I'll be your treasure. I felt the touch of the kings and the breath of the wind. I need the call of all the songbirds. They sang all the wrong words. I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you.
Today, I wanted to talk about a wonderful little series that follows two metal detectors.
Detectorists!
Sorry, two metal detectorists, Lance and Andy, as they search for buried treasures. The show is a British show which ran for 3 seasons, each of which has about 6 episodes at 20 minutes an episode, so it is really quite a short show, but it is well worth the watch. The show has a wonderful atmosphere that puts you in a relaxed mood as you enjoy the bits of comedy, the bits of drama, and even the bits that are a bit deeper and more philosophical. So let's break down this show and see why it is so wonderful. As I mentioned, the series has a wonderful atmosphere, as it is set in the British countryside. Specifically, the series is set in a small imaginary village called Danebury, where everyone knows one another and everyone gets along for the most part. The scenery and the shots of the countryside are always wonderful to look at, and the music is quite calming. Not to mention, the show isn't incredibly fast-paced, so that you can watch in quite a relaxed state and at your own leisure. The biggest complaint that you might have is that the episodes are too short and you're left wanting to see more. Lance and Andy can often be seen sweeping luscious fields or farmlands in search of the artifacts of old. And even when within the village, we're met with cozy architecture and quaint pubs, making this a very beautiful series to watch. Your eyes alone will thank you for watching this series. Now as we get into the characters, there's a lot that can be said. Lance and Andy are the main characters, but each of the sub-characters really help to enhance the show and bring their own unique personalities forward into the mix. Lance is seemingly the older of the two, and is more experienced than Andy in the ways of the world. For one thing, he's been married and then divorced. He's had past relationships and workplace experiences that he often shares throughout the series, and he serves as a good best friend to Andy. Andy is the more autistic of the two in his mannerisms, and though he isn't so experienced with the world as Lance, he does know where he belongs and what he's comfortable doing, and that's detectoring. Together, they share a common mission, not to find buried gold and become insanely wealthy, but to find relics of the past and discover the stories that can be told through their ancestry. They wish to uncover the truth of what had happened throughout history, and whether the Anglo-Saxons had come to these lands, and whether the kings of old had come to stay there. And this is the true purpose of their detecting. Although you might find that they don't discover much throughout the series, their pursuit is a noble one, and is one that might be lost in today's youth. That urge to discover the past and look to your ancestors with pride and awe. Lance has an ex-wife. She's a mystical sort of person who clearly doesn't care for Lance in the slightest. She left him for the manager of Pizza Hut, who is seen as a douche as soon as he is introduced. Andy, on the other hand, has a wonderful partner, Becky, whom he cares for a lot and wants to make her happy, but he finds himself failing her in that regard because he wants to pursue his hobby of detectoring. But it isn't helping with the upkeep of their home, as he doesn't make a lot of money. Becky is still supportive of him and his endeavours in spite of this.
Why do you want to give up?
I don't, but, you know.
No, I don't know.
Becky can't even begin to comprehend this.
Oh, why do you want her to?
Because it's important to me. I want her to understand it.
Well, she does understand that it's important to you. That's enough, isn't it? You don't need her to get into it. It's a hobby, that's all. Men have hobbies and women don't understand them. It's the way it's always been. I mean, how many female train spotters are there? How many women commit to an afternoon reorganising their vinyl in alphabetical order? Oh, you don't want to spend an evening with a beautiful woman just comparing comic book collections, do you? Oh, what you want is your partner to shake her head, roll her eyes and look at you and say, you and your hobbies. I'll never understand men.
Beyond that, there is Sophie, who gets introduced into the story. And Sophie is a lovely addition to the show, because not only does it stir the pot a bit and create a bit of drama, but she doesn't butt in too much to say that Lance and Andy becomes Lance and Andy and Sophie. They achieve a perfect balance between the side characters and the main characters, and how much they influence the main storyline. The remainder of side characters are part of the DMDC, the Daneberry Metal Detecting Club, which Lance and Andy are a part of. There is the fearless leader Terry and his wife Sheila. There is Russell and Hugh, and Louise and Varda. Now immediately one might notice a bit of diversity in Hugh. It is also stated that Louise and Varda are a couple. However, I didn't really see this as subversive in any way, because their relationship was only mentioned as part of a joke. And for the rest of the series, there aren't any overt nods to the pair of them, except for a small scene in the background in the final episodes of Season 3. And Hugh's race never becomes a topic of any conversation, and he's quite funny alongside Russell. But as I said, these characters don't disrupt the story in major ways. Each of them have unique and contrasting personalities, and they really enhance the story by providing comedic interactions with one another. Outside of the DMDC and Lance and Andy's lives, there are two other characters worth mentioning.
Hey there!
Who's this?
Looks like Simon and Garfunkel.
Hello there.
Watcher?
How are we?
Feeling groovy?
And these two are great because they play the quote-unquote villains of the DMDC, who are constantly trying to impinge on their permissions and find something worthy of the museums. There are some other characters that get introduced later on, but not in any significant capacity that I should focus on them. Another thing that the series does really well is showing how the main characters, Andy in particular, is very different to the average person. This is perfectly exemplified whenever Andy has to take the odd job here and there, and has to answer to a boss of sorts. The person that he is working for, or working with, is usually just a guy following orders, and not questioning anything, whereas Andy has a much more human approach to things. For example, there was a time when Andy was supposed to be spraying weed killer on the grass on the side of the road. But Andy doesn't really care for the killing of the weeds. He thinks that it looks really nice, and it might even disturb the wildlife in the area if they sprayed. So instead, he chooses not to put the weed killer in, which his boss doesn't know about. The boss doesn't really care about all those ramifications of using the weed killer on the grass. He was given a job and he just wants to get it done and get paid. Similarly, in Season 3, Andy is working for a company that wants to set up solar farms in their village. However, Andy finds a great work of Roman mosaic hidden beneath the ground and gets extremely excited and wants to excavate it. His boss, on the other hand, wants him to immediately cover it up, and then, in the middle of the night, they dig out all the mosaic and remove it from the site, and cover back up the dirt so that no one would know that it was ever there. The reason? Well, the mosaic would have been something with historical and cultural significance, meaning that the solar farm would not have been built on the site, or at the very least would have been delayed until the area could be properly searched and excavated. And time is money, so the easiest option would just be to cover it up, which understandably makes Andy very upset. There are other examples as well. One of the most notable ones in Season 3 is where the same solar company wants to cut down the tree that Andy and Lance are always taking shade under after a day's detectoring. The reason being that the tree was soaking up all the sun that could otherwise go towards the solar farm.
See, the sun travels through the sky. And that patch covers half an acre in a day. It's a lot of sunlight all wasted on a tree. See ya.
But Andy and Lance find it so commonsensical to note that the tree is beautiful and lovely, and why should they ever want to cut it down? The NPC can't recognize its beauty and is only interested in results, profits, and progress. Andy is also shown during many of his jobs to be caring for animals, no matter how small. He finds a frog one day while cutting the grass and presumably takes him to a lush field somewhere. In the same job where he is spraying the grass, he finds a hedgehog and asks his boss if he could go and find a new home for it. There's also a funny scene at an auction house that Andy and Becky attend that also exemplifies this trait, but I won't spoil the fun in that one. Naturally, an important part of the series is detectoring itself, but Lance and Andy have a very different view than it being simply a hobby.
Carry on, mate. Gotta keep searching.
Do you know why we do it?
No? I do.
Thought you probably would.
Time travel.
Go on.
Metal detecting is the closest you'll get to time travel. See, archaeologists, they gather up the facts, piece the jigsaw together, work out how we lived and find the buildings we lived in. But what we do is, that's different. We unearth the scattered memories, mine for stories, fill in the personality. detectorists. We're time travelers.
Yeah, all right. I'll give you that one.
Pub?
Go on then.
They see it as a way of discovering the way that their ancestors lived and grabbing hold of some semblance of the past. Even the theme song to the series hints at it.
Will you search through the lonely earth for me? Climb through the briar and bramble. I'll be your treasure. I felt the touch of the kings and the breath of the wind. I need the call of all the songbirds. They sang all the wrong words. I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you.
The song is seemingly sung from the perspectives of the kings and warriors of old, of the people that lived in another time in history, and they are wondering if anyone would search for them and go through the toil just to connect with them again. But this is the true pursuit of our main characters. They aren't concerned with getting rich, as I mentioned before, and in fact, Lance is actually really well off since he literally won the lottery the day Maggie left.
I've never admitted this to anyone, but I really won the lottery the day Maggie left me.
Right. You mean what, you didn't realise at the time, but actually it was the best thing that could have happened?
Pardon?
You mean that it was a good thing?
What was?
Maggie leaving you?
Eh?
What did you mean then? I won the lottery.
I won the lottery the day Maggie left me.
Sorry, what do you mean?
What part of I won the lottery don't you understand?
You won the lottery?
Yes.
The national lottery?
Yes.
How much?
300 grand.
Shut up.
True.
All in all, it results in a very powerful message, and one that is practically nationalistic. Now, I've already addressed Hugh and the lesbian couple, which are two very minor things in the series. But something that is in the forefront is Becky's desire to teach the children in Africa who are suffering. We see a scene where she is so frustrated listening to the teachers in her current school whine about parking and other trivial matters, that she thinks that there is so much more that she could have been doing, like helping those children in Africa. Now, I don't really see this as anything subversive. Instead, it's an expression of the white man's burden, that desire to help others and to really feel for those who can't fend for themselves. Besides, the way that they resolved the storyline was exemplary, but I shan't spoil it for those who are interested in watching the series. In conclusion, I think the series is brilliant. There's a perfect mix of drama, comedy, and serious problems that impact the everyday man and woman. The series is quite grounded, and so very relatable to the average person. The drama isn't too much or too little, but hits that very narrow sweet spot of introducing conflict to keep the audience on their toes, but not to keep them waiting too long for a resolution. There are brilliant characters, lovely scenery, and somber background music, all wrapped up in a cozy village with a wonderfully written story. And it's worth mentioning the story has a good ending, which I think is very important in today's storytelling. I would highly recommend the series, and it gets maybe a 9 out of 10 for me. Well, that's all for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.